What's going on, guys? And I have an important announcement. As you guys have seen on Facebook, the Warcry podcast now has a merch store through Redbubble. What you'll do is you'll hit that link below, select the logo that you like. You know, we got a wolf logo, we got that Bigfoot scratch or the Dogman scratch logo. Once you select the logo, you'll go down, hit your styles. If you want a T-shirt, if you want a sweatshirt, or if you want different things, or a sticker or whatever. You'll select the color of that, and then your size, and then you hit that checkout button. And hitting that checkout button and getting that T-shirt supports the podcast. And I appreciate everyone that listens, and it's amazing, and I do truly appreciate it. But with that said, let's get to the episode. So run me my music. What's going on, guys, and welcome to another edition of the Warcry podcast. I'm your host, Jehola Tiger. On the ones and twos is myself, because I have a new mic and a new soundboard. So hopefully that sounds pretty good to y'all. But we got another edition of Spooky Season. And on this episode of Spooky Seasons, over the course of the last, I would say, 6-7 months, maybe longer than that, I've had a few people reach out to me about certain omens that have kind of made their way into their life, and they had questions about it. And I've been promising you guys an episode, so here it is. This episode is going to be about omens. And I'm going to start off talking about omens. So we're going to be talking about, I guess you could say, good omens and kind of bad omens, but when you hear the word omen, you're usually like, hey, it's usually pretty bad. But on this, like I said, on this episode, I'm going to hit a multiple different types of cultures. And I'm at the very end. You might want to hang on. I got a pretty crazy omen story that I got from somebody. This is a couple years ago, and you do not want to miss it. So with the first omen, that comes up, to my mind, taking a few notes. We'll see how it shakes out. But the first omen that I want to talk about comes out of 17th century England, and it's called the Death Watch Beetle. And the Death Watch Beetle is an omen that could be still around today. Let me know if you believe in the Death Watch Beetle or some type of beetle. But essentially what this is there's this beetle that digs its way into wood. And the beetle will get so far into the wood where it's like at the core of whatever it is. It could be a seat. It could be a door. What I've kind of read about that is that's people would hear tapping at the door and would think that it's like, someone at the door. They'd open it, and then, there's nobody there. But it's this beetle. Well, once they kind of figured out that this beetle, had overtaken, and I believe it was like South Farmington, England. If people in the UK hear this, let me know if you guys still are still spooked out by this. But essentially what this beetle will do is get into the door or whatever it is, and it would tap. It would do like this tapping sound, almost driving people insane. And, over the course of multiple, hundreds of years, they basically was driving people insane. And when they'd hear that, someone would always die by whatever means. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, talking about another, different culture and different, part of the world when it came to these omens. Another one out of England is, and I think this is, could be a multitude of different omens, I guess you could say, but is the unburied bodies. And so kind of how this legend or kind of how this came to be about is when an unburied body is not buried through Sunday. So if, there's a body that's out and it didn't get buried, before Sunday, basically someone in that family will die. And there was multiple accounts of that happening. And this is I believe in 1889 is when this started being recorded. And it happened 100 years before that, over in England. And then now, kind of Civil War era, early, late 1800s, early 1900s. But people would go, would pass away. Some people kind of say that it could be like when a loved one passes away and the heartbreak is so much that, someone dies of heartbreak. That's another thing associated with that too as well. But I found that pretty interesting too when it came to kind of different types of omens. Now this next one, I find very interesting. And to me, it's like, I think it happens a lot. And I've mentioned on a prior spooky season, I think it was the last one, 3, the movie Us. and how we, possibly could have some type of doppelganger type of, thing going on. And in German cultures, and this omen is a doppelganger omen. And this omen is very, I think it's kind of hits modern day almost to an extent. But what is a doppelganger? Some people say, oh, it's your twin, or it's your basically your soul could be, in two places at once. And other people say that it's from a different dimension. Somehow they came over to this dimension and you swapped. I've heard that one before, but really what it is someone that looks just like you, but you're unrelated. That's essentially kind of what it means. And I just recently got a story, which is kind of crazy that I'm talking about this today, about this type of thing happening. And that'll be on This Is Creepy Part 4. That's a pretty wicked story that I got about that. I was kind of got goosebumps reading it, and getting that information. But in German folklore, a doppelganger is someone who you don't want to meet, and if you meet them, that means you will pass away. It's a guaranteed thing in German culture. And one thing I find very interesting is the way they describe it. It's you, and it looks like you, but it's not you, and it's something. And this is a word that I think is kind of used in a weird way. Is people over there kind of call it a wraith type entity, or like someone that a thing that eats your soul or takes your soul. Some people say it could be some sort of I guess you could say death, or I can't think of the name of that now. But anyways, some type of harbinger of death, essentially. And it's even kind of crazy. Like I said, I mentioned the story that's going to be coming out, for This Is Creepy. But, it's pretty interesting that in some native cultures that basically they kind of come from underground. Or, they could also be shapeshifters. It looks like you, but isn't you. And so I just find that doppelganger type of thing really pretty interesting. It's kind of crazy, too. I remember this might have been 15 years ago for me, but I had somebody... I've had this. This has happened multiple times, and I believe we all have one. I really do. I think the way genetics is set up, like in our bodies, and there's got to be a repeating, gene out there that makes someone look like you or me or whatever. And I had somebody reach out to me. Like I said, well, it was a family member who reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I saw you over at this place. I'm not gonna give the town's name, but over here." And bear in mind, I can't even drive. Like I'm a young guy, but they were like, yeah, we saw you, and you weren't with your mom or your dad or anybody, but we saw you. You were there. We even hollered your name, and the person that the kid that we hollered at looked at us and kind of like looked and was like, kind of gave us a blank stare and turned around, but it looked just like you. And when I heard that, I said, no, y'all are just crazy. Because, some people say, oh, well, you look like this person, or dang, you look like that person, or whatever, but They literally were like, we thought it was you. We were hollering your name, and you would not turn. You looked at us, and you kind of gave us this blank stare, and it didn't. And it like walked away, or you walked away. I thought that was very weird. And then I had somebody like when I was in college, or it might have been early or late high school, but I was a young guy. I was a younger high school, early college, and I had somebody reach out to me like, hey man, I saw you at that thing, man. You was acting wild, like some party or whatever. And they're like, man, you was really going crazy, man. Like you were. Like not being yourself. And I'm like, where was this at? And it was somewhere where I wasn't. And they were like, dude, I swear it was you. I said, no, I swear I wasn't even there. Like they were really like, no, dude, you quit messing around. I was like, no, I swear that wasn't me. And they're like, dude, they like put it on, like they were really like serious about it. And so I always wonder, like if it's just like if it's like you say, we say, our evil twin, or somebody coming back from the other side. And, coming out for a night and enjoying your life. I don't know. Those are two kind of weird things that's happened to me in my life. And I'm sure if you have a doppelganger story, or you have someone saying that you're somewhere and that you're riding around and it wasn't you, shoot me a message. I would like to hear that. Cause like I said, I had one come in about it, and like I said, I've heard other kind of, that I can't really remember off the top of my head, but I've heard different things about that. And so if you got a story about a doppelganger, or someone saying that, hey, we saw you, but you wouldn't respond to us, shoot me a message, and I'd like to hear that, or an email, and kind of describe that experience. And, I find that very intriguing. And so we're getting down. Like I said, this is gonna be a kind of shorter episode. I wanted to keep it pretty light. Like I said, I'm putting out content all week. My goal is to go live on YouTube at some point, and so like I said, I'm just putting out content, making sure y'all taken care of for this Halloween season. And like I said, I've had multiple people reach out to me about this. Like someone just as of last week, was asking me about this death omen or this omen, and this omen is owls. And one thing about this topic is it is kind of a wide-ranging topic because there's a lot of different cultures who have different meanings for an owl, and different tribes believe different things. And I'm going to just give the broad, but I'm also going to give some examples of kind of how it's affected me. And if you got any, stories about seeing an owl or anything weird like that, or this topic, and what I'm about to say about this topic about owls, like I said, send me a story. I'd like to hear it. But when it comes to owls, in a lot of different cultures, and like I said, in a lot of tribes, really, they look at it as a message, and the message could be a multitude of different things. It could be a multitude of different, like good or bad. One, especially with Muskogee Creek and Cherokee, we believe that it's bad. And if you guys have seen Reservation Dogs, they blur out the owl's eyes. And, there's different owls out there that have like human faces, like human eyes. Like they like have the whites in their eyes, and it's freaky. It's like, I don't even want to see it. Get it off my timeline. What are you doing? Why are you putting this evil on me? By putting this on my timeline? No. But I had a former staff member of mine. He comes up to me and he's like, "Hey man, I'm sorry." I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're sorry?" And he pulls up his short leg, like it was on his like kind of lower thigh. I know I sound kind of crazy, but he put it there. I don't know why. He goes, "I'm sorry," and he pulls it up, and there's a big old owl, like a whole like 2 foot, basically covering his entire outside thigh. And I'm like, dude, you crazy for this? I don't wish bad things on people, but man, I was that close. He almost had me. He had me in the first half, and I came and rallied in the second. He wasn't gonna make me put that that bad intention on that man. But yeah, he had a whole owl tattoo, and I was like, dude, if you don't believe in it, then hey man, it is you, but I don't cover that up when you're around me. And he just kind of smirked and kind of laughed and said, "All right, boss man, got you." I said, "All right, man, that's all I need." But like I said, in most native cultures, it is looked at like as a message. One type of owl that I think I hear a lot of is the screech owl or like a barn owl. And those are the two that I kind of hear, people seeing or hearing in the night that kind of got them all spooked out. But, we talk about a message. And the message is usually something of like either death or a warning that something's about to happen or a death's about to happen. And also, kind of the more, I would say, not well discussed is that, medicine people send them and use them, for those different types of interactions, I say. And, talking about that, the owl, like I said, and will be used or is used by medicine people. And, basically what they do is they use that owl to gain knowledge, of the comings and goings of the tribe, the clan, or the people. It's or it's sent to people in, the term of a message, or a warning, and could be used in that way. It also, like I said, if someone disrespects one of these medicine people, they send it as like a warning. And that kind of gets into more, I don't want to say nefarious, but like kind of, spooky aspect of it. And, in parts of the owl, like a feather of the owl has been used in some tribes as like a peace offering or part of a peace offering or attached to it, to let these other people that are coming in, like, hey, we're okay. We just want to let you know, but we saw you coming and we mean no harm, or, things like that. But is that a common thing? It just depends on the tribe. I think one tribe I know for sure is the Omaha. I think they use it as a peace offering, I believe. And, one thing about them too, I was kind of doing some research on different tribes because, we look at it, like I look at it as like, hey, this thing is spooky. This thing is a skilly. This is Stegini or, one of those honkas, but we always look at them like that. and I do anyways. But there's like another, like Omaha. Like I said, I was doing some research, watching some videos, and reading some articles about what they believe. These is up in Nebraska, and some Plains people believe this too, but they believe it kind of is like a feminine energy, like women are for the night, men are for the day. Is how it was kind of described, and I found that very interesting. That in a good way, that these owls are used, for healing, women and kids and things like that. And I thought that was real kind of cool, but you ain't gonna catch me. Nah, I'm good. I'm good, man. I'm good. Respect to the Omaha people for, that being their thing, and Plains people, I know some Plains tribes believe in that too, but, I'm good. But, and to give some examples, I know, just giving some basic information because, at the end of the day, I'm only told what I'm told, and growing up, my grandpa would always say, if you hear, things that don't make sense, or like he always would say he didn't use laughter in the woods, but if you ever heard a bird kind of do almost like it was trying to be a human, he said, something's off. You might want to get out of there. And giving an example of that, my mom. And this will I'll do a full kind of a more in-depth story or more detail and more context to this. But things were going on at our house where my parents live now, and we had some people kind of looking, warning us and doing things because of. And I mentioned this in the early years of dealing with medicine people and doing those things, and like I said, I have respect for medicine people. It means no disrespect, but it's just my life. I don't know how any other way to put it other than I have respect for medicine and people that practice those things. I don't mean no disrespect, but we had somebody kind of messing with us. But anyways, and so we would every now and then there was a section of our woods that kind of went down into went all the way down to the river. But there's obviously barbed wire fences and there's a bunch of trees and it's a hill that had like a little path that walked around. And I remember being a young guy, hearing. And the first time I ever heard this, it might have been after we moved to where my parents are now, like 6th grade. But since 6th grade, I've always heard this faint hoot. It's almost like it's blowing in the wind. And I haven't, I would hear it periodically, and I would always tell people, and I always ask people, like when I'd hear it, you hear that? And they're like, no, I don't hear that. What are you talking about? It's just I hear car sirens, or or it'd be ambulance, or just city noises, or wherever we were at. And a couple times we were out in the middle of nowhere, kind of messing around, and starting. This is kind of crazy. We like not starting fires, but doing bonfires and stuff like that, and or just doing things. Just being young. And I'd always say, "You hear that?" And we'd be middle of nowhere, and they'd be like, "No, I don't hear that. Why you keep saying that?" And I'd always hear it. It'd be a faint hoot, and as I got older, I would really try to concentrate to see where it's coming from and try to figure out where that come from. And that's what they, that's part of this medicine, that I talk about with, they send messages and warnings. And I tell my grandpa, I said, I hear this all the time since I was probably 6th grade. He goes, yeah. He's like, yeah. He's like, I figured it'd get one of y'all or something like that when it came to these, things that we, dealt with growing up. And he just said, just keep living right. He always says strong body, strong mind, things like that. And, but I'd hear it. And it'd sound like it, like before I was able to drive and things like that, when I was a young guy, middle school, early high school, I'd hear it from a certain section of the woods at my parents' house. And my mom one day was mowing, and I'm out there playing, shooting around. And I go inside because it's like 110 degrees, Oklahoma weather, but she comes in and says, yeah, I heard something sound like a bird laughing or something, or like some type of kind of weird noise that didn't make sense. And my mom is she's Cherokee, so she always wants to be logical. She don't want to think of everything as the supernatural. I kind of lean more that way anyways, but she's like, I don't know, it sounded like sounded like a laughter, but it was like a bird sound, and I had been hearing that since we moved there. And, I've come to find things out as I got older, that it's a warning from somebody, from someone, someone that, just letting I'm around, just letting I'm here. Don't forget about me, type creepy stuff. And I think about it now as I'm older. I heard it about 4 months ago, and I hear it and it's random. And for the first time, I think I finally realized, like, okay, something's about to happen. So I kind of try to stay in my lane on things and not push the issue on things, and just everyday life. And I find it very interesting. But that's kind of what I mean by when they send warnings and messages, or someone does. Another incident of an owl, that's people have heard or seen, is when they sit on top of your house and they just hoot, but it doesn't sound like a hoot. It's more human. People talk about that all the time, and there's a story. For me growing up, I went to Cherokee camp, Heritage Camp, for it's like a 1-2 week thing, and you'd hear stories from these Cherokee national treasures like Sammy Steele, or Louis Jackson, who was AD for a lot of years at Sequoia High School. And you hear these elders, now they're elders, but then they were a little younger. There was elders, before them. But they talk about someone sending a message to somebody, letting them know, hey, your relative had passed. And the story that that my parents had told me, that they had saw a pretty large owl in the middle of the road one night. And both of them, my mom and my dad, both, they know things about this. They've been told growing up, or my mom learned through working with people who know things. And we had a relative pass not too long after that. And my dad always said, with this relative, we never spoke to her. We never really had any communication with her. But he always said that she always thought real highly of, my grandpa. And so with him being gone, we're the next kind of line, up. And my dad is, and he said he saw that owl, and he found out. So that's another way that, sometimes relatives could be that owl, or that person, or that owl that, you see. And they're usually pretty large. They're larger than a normal owl, but they're just letting you know, hey, I'm past. I'm about to pass away. I just want to let you know and come see you. And that's pretty. I think it's cool, but at the same time, like, still, I still get spooked out about that. But yeah, like I said, there's multiple different ways that you could be hearing about owls. I had somebody reach out to me about them hearing an owl screeching at right outside their house, and I asked them how close it was, and I said, I asked them, did you have someone in your family who's going through a rough time, and they say, yeah, my so and so sick, or but owls to me are very spooky. Just to looking at them, just very creepy. But if you got a story like that, I'd like to hear it. Like I said, I'd like to hear all these stories. If you got kind of a weird omen story, I'd like to hear it. And those are to me very. I won't. I mean, you can. I probably won't talk about it because I don't like talking about it. Honestly, I'm just. I had people asking me about it, and so I thought I'd talk about it a little bit. Not really getting into crazy specifics. I got a little bit of heat, a little bit of juice, but the last omen story that I want to tell, and this one kind of rocked me to my core a little bit when I heard it the first time. And one thing about this story is it's very. I haven't heard anything quite like this, and I've had people, and I've told this story to people, and they've said, yeah, I've heard something similar to that, and I even heard this detail, and they thought it was very strange. So I was on a live stream about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was telling stories, and we were talking about conspiracies, and I was just cutting it up, just doing my thing, just talking really. And a gentleman joined the live stream, and I couldn't help but just ask him questions. I could not help it. And so this is, and I think he was, and I can't remember. I think he might have been Osage or Choctaw. I can't exactly remember. This is like 3 years ago. But I told this story maybe one time before, publicly, but I'll tell it on this podcast because we are talking about omens. This gentleman was coming home one night, and he was pulling into his driveway, and his headlights hit a figure that was standing next to this lone tree, that was kind of in the middle of the yard, I guess you could say. And he notices it, and he's kind of like, "What is that?" Like who's standing out in the yard? So he gets out and he's like, "Hey, how can I help you?" How can I help you? You lost, you need help, you need some, food, you need some money. Like, what's going on, man? How can I help you? So he kind of walks out there a little bit, and this figure's not saying nothing, just standing there. And he noticed as he was looking at this, it was dark. He says it's pretty dark outside. And he noticed, he started looking at it, and he said, man, this got like a hide skin, like animal hide wrapped around. And it had like a little, I asked him if it kind of had a hood. He said, well, maybe. I said, what did it look like? And he's like, well, it kind of looked real thin, real pale. He said, but it had a hide on it. And I'm kind of looking to kind of looking around like, man, I'm kind of wondering what he's talking about. And he said, he's like, I promise you I saw this, but it ran up to me like fast, but it wasn't running. It was floating. I'm getting goosebumps telling this. And he said he said it didn't smell. He's like, it was like gray, pale, like it was like death, but it had a high animal hide over its body. And he said it came up to him within like centimeters, and it went away. And he like had to think, like, he's like, what just happened? So he runs into his house, and he runs into the bedroom, and he calls his dad. And all of a sudden he hears knocking at the door. And they kept knocking. And he was like, I'm not going to answer that. He's like, I don't want to answer that. He's like, I don't want to answer that. And so he basically, and this, like I said, this is kind of a rough story, but he calls his dad. And how he described his father, him and his father, is people mistaking them sometimes. They look so similar. They looked a lot alike. And they had a lot of same personality traits and characteristics. And, he really, people would mistake them sometimes. And they had the same name. He was just, senior and junior, but they had the same name. And he calls his dad. And his dad's like, oh, how you doing, son? Just talking. And he goes to hang up the phone. And he hears a trumpet playing in the room. And how he described it, he said it was like a musical instrument. But I think he equated it to kind of like a trumpet. It was like it was definitely a musical machine. And and it was in the room. Like he said, he could hear it in the room. And it was loud. And the knocking stopped. Well, then he finds out later on that his father had passed away. He had just spoken to him a little bit before that. And part of the story that I'm having fuzzies remembering I couldn't remember if he was on the phone with his dad when the knocking happened, but there was knocking on his door, but then there was also knocking on his dad's door too as well. And he later finds out his dad had passed away. And I asked him, I said, or he asked me what I thought it was. And my opinion of it is that it was one of those omens, a harbinger of death was coming. And it was letting him know that, hey, it's not going to be you, but it's going to be someone close to you, And I thought, like I said, maybe I classified it as an omen, or maybe this entity or this being, was going to take him, but then realize he was not the right one because him and his dad were so similar. I always think about that sometimes. Like me and my dad, we look pretty similar, but we're not. We got the same name. I think about that a lot. And I asked him. I said, so what happened after like all this? He said, well, my dad passed away. We gave him his funeral and went through all the whole process. And so I said, did you see anything after that? He said, no. I said, it was just that one night. I said, do you think your dad opened the door when he heard the knocking? And he goes, yeah, my dad was that kind of guy. He'd help anybody. It's a crazy story, but it's a story that was told to me, like I said, 3 years ago. But that's all I got for you guys. This episode. Hopefully this gave you some information. If you got any stories that you want to send, you can message me on Facebook, Yehola Tiger. Send me a message and then, add me as a friend. We'll talk about it, and share stories and whatever we need to do. Also the email, real, REAL, Warcry Podcast, warcrypod@gmail.com. I almost said a website. I don't know why, but TikTok, Instagram, Warcry Pod. Go follow that. Share the podcast out. I appreciate everyone that has been continuing to do that. The numbers, I can't describe, how much I appreciate everybody that listens. I had somebody reach out to me today actually saying, man, I listened to that old episode with old Derek Morris, the original, the first episode with him. And, they really was, had good opinions about it. And I appreciate that. And, I appreciate, people coming on my podcast. I appreciate people that message me. I try to get to everybody as much as I can. But like I said, guys, we're going to have This Is Creepy coming out the Monday before Halloween. You will not want to miss it. Like I said, I got some pretty keen stories, pretty spooky stories. I'm going to try to go live. And this episode's looking to be coming out either Wednesday or Thursday of this week. But I may do it, tomorrow. Who knows? I'll just be releasing stuff. But I want you guys to have enough spooky content to get you through the week. Like I said, we'll be doing a live stream, or I'll be doing a live stream talking about more spooky movies to watch. This weekend. I know we got a weekend coming up. You'll be out with your family, but you never know. You might want to pop in a movie that you never heard of before. We got plenty of topics: vampires, werewolves. We have Native American horror films that I think you guys should check out. I think they're pretty good. So like I said, we got a lot of stuff coming this week. We want to pound some stuff out for y'all. Get everything right. But like I said, I appreciate everyone that listens to the podcast, and I'm gonna catch you on the next one.